That's a mountain. It's not just any mountain, of course. That is the throat of the world from the hit 2011 title The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. You may have heard of it. Now, that's a pretty big mountain, wouldn't you say? I certainly would. I mean, look at it. But that's just it. It looks like a big mountain, but it doesn't feel like a big mountain. Not anymore. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm glad you asked. This actually goes for the entire game, but the throat of the world is the solid central symbolism for the rest of the map. This doesn't feel as big as it used to, which, yes, that does make sense when you consider the fact that it is a 15-year-old game. Open world games get so much bigger as time goes on, and as a result, older games do tend to feel much smaller in comparison. In fact, some games nowadays feel even too big for me to deal with, like Crimson Desert. I'm amazed at how big that world is, but my old man brain just doesn't know what to do with it anymore. Where do I go? But when I say Skyrim feels smaller, I don't mean in scale, necessarily. It can certainly look smaller at points, like when you get a good view of Whiterun from above and realize that you can almost count the number of buildings on one hand. But again, that's expected as a sign of the times, and we've only seen games with bigger cities since that, such as Novigrad in The Witcher 3, which that was only 4 years after Skyrim. Yes, that does mean that The Witcher 3 is 11 years old. Can I retire yet? I feel like I should be able to. That's a joke. I'll never be able to retire. But no, I'm talking about how Skyrim feels smaller, more so than how it looks smaller. And I get that feeling every time I see, you guessed it, that mountain. It's visible from most places on the map, and especially when you get a good landscape view or look out to the horizon. It looms over the world as a constant reminder of where you are in correlation to it. And especially once you get to Ivarstead with the pilgrimage of the 7,000 steps waiting for you to begin the climb. Or 748 steps. But who's counting? This person. They counted. But no matter what, this mountain remains the most prominent entity throughout the entire experience. From the moment you set foot out of the cave after escaping Helgen, it's right there. Even as you're waiting at the chopping block in Helgen, there it is. It's not exactly hiding itself. Down to Riverwood and along to Whiterun, it's there. From Whiterun into the Rift and eventually reaching Ivarstead, it's there. And that's not to mention the numerous times throughout the story that you'll be up at the peak of the mountain, either visiting High Hrothgar or talking to Paarthurnax. Talking to Paarthurnax. Not killing. You can spend hundreds of hours in Skyrim, and it's fair to say that most of us probably have, at least, and the throat of the world is going to remain visible at almost all times. You know that feeling you get when you see something absolutely colossal? That feeling that makes you feel so small? It's like I get that feeling looking at this mountain, but instead of just making me feel small, it makes the surroundings feel small. And in turn, it makes the mountain itself feel smaller, despite still looking like a mountain. It's like a cycle of, oh, there's the mountain again, and I'm in a pocket of a virtual world. I think this largely comes from my familiarity with Skyrim's map at this point. 15 years is a long time, and a long time to play a game. And it's fair to say that most of us have put the time in to adventuring throughout the land of the Nords. Playing Skyrim today, it's more like settling into muscle memory and autopilot than actually getting lost in the world itself. And that's not to say that it's failing to envelop me in its world anymore, but I just know it so well. Like, if you visit a new town and wander around, it'll be exciting to explore it, but live there for 15 years, and walking to the store is going to give you little more than a mundane comfort. It doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's familiar. I can still have a great time playing Skyrim nowadays, even without mods or creations, but I am constantly aware of where I am in relation to everything around me. And again, that is to be expected with an older game that you're so familiar with. It's that immaterial awareness of the time you've spent in it. But in Skyrim, it's not immaterial because of that mountain. The throat of the world, the very thing that feeds me my belief. And travelling up to High Hrothgar only keeps me in this sense of evident familiarity. Standing atop the conspicuous mountain with a view of the ostensibly large world. It all looks vast, but it continues to feel smaller. But what about when I'm not as familiar, or when I'm watching the mountain loom over the land from another land entirely? For the former, here is Skyrim. The land, not the game. Or I guess land is not the right word to use, but you get the point. This is Skyrim in the Elder Scrolls Online, more specifically, Ivarstead. And up there, somewhere, is the throat of the world. Somewhere over there, at least. Behind the trees, I think? It's kind of hard to make out. Yes, that is the throat of the world. I think. The mountain is an ever-present aspect of Skyrim, the game, but here it's hardly present at all. Almost like the Elder Scrolls Online doesn't want it looming over your trips into the regions of Skyrim. Maybe because it doesn't want to give the illusion of something colossal, or maybe it just doesn't want to make you feel small. Smaller, that is. The proportions of just about everything in the Elder Scrolls Online will make you feel small. That's MMOs for you. But then, the mountain actually is visible from the Falkreath Hold DLC dungeon, which I don't have, so here's a picture of it. Yep. That's the mountain, alright. The throat of the world is proudly visible when you're in this dungeon instance, but far less so when you're just exploring the regions of Skyrim. I mean, a good view of it is great, but I would have thought I would at least be able to see it in some apparent capacity when I'm literally at the foot of its climb. It doesn't even tease you with the mountain's presence when you start making your way up to the blockade, up the 7,000 steps. Instead, it just looks like some generic mountain range, and it might be there. Maybe. It's a strange thing to avoid including, especially when that is the throat of the world as visible from Cyrodiil, an entirely different country. This is Oblivion Remastered, which is currently the most recent Elder Scrolls game we have. Technically. It's an older game, of course, but it was visually rebuilt from the ground up, including that. Our old friend. The throat of the world was not visible in the original release of Oblivion, given that it was half a decade earlier than Skyrim. At most, it would have existed in some obscure lore, but certainly not enough to make it visible on the horizon of a neighbouring country. Nobody would know it or its significance at that point anyway. But here in Oblivion Remastered, 14 years after Skyrim, it made sense to include the notorious summit in the distance. And from here, Skyrim doesn't feel quite so small. I know the province well, of course, but not what this visualization of Tamriel would depict it as. Now, if you stand up here on this mountain, which you shouldn't be able to do by any normal means in Oblivion Remastered, you can view the surroundings of the mountain itself. The rest of Skyrim hasn't been modeled. Of course, we don't expect it to be. You're not even supposed to see this, so it makes sense. But from here, there's an element of the unknown, even if a small semblance, and it makes the mountain feel that much bigger. Almost like I can look in on a familiarity from a distance, and my mind will fill in the gaps of its grandeur without its actual features reeling in the scale. Like my brain knows the lore-accurate size of Skyrim, and so that's what I'm picturing over there, rather than the 2011 version that we were given. But that's not enough to satisfy my curiosity, so I made my way all the way out of bounds to the throat of the world itself. Well, as far as the ground would allow me before I reached this harsh cutoff. So, time to continue without the ground. This took a while. This is actual speed, so let me skip ahead for you. Okay, here is our view from the top of the throat of the world in Oblivion Remastered. I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't even allowed to stand on the mountain's peak. I just fell straight through it into oblivion. But back within the boundaries of Cyrodiil, I can't help but find it fascinating that Skyrim's looming mountain is able to loom over another province entirely as long as you're in the position to see it. In a way, this is the best way to experience Skyrim nowadays, if you want to keep the perception intact. I mean, it's not. Skyrim's still great to play, but you get the point. This is how the throat of the world is supposed to feel, but how it no longer feels in Skyrim itself. It continues to look big in Skyrim, but its appearance can only do so much heavy lifting. I don't know if The Elder Scrolls 6 is going to come around anytime soon. Probably not. But I do know that it's going to feel huge. New lands to explore, new locations to get lost in, and new mountains to convince me of their scale without sacrificing their own illusions in the meantime. Well, at least not for the first decade or so. But for now, with every additional step I take in the province of Skyrim, the smaller it feels. The mountain will continue to do its best to convince me otherwise, but as incredible as it is to look at, its own persistence will only achieve the opposite, and more so as time goes on. And that is the sign of a world that has been well loved and will be treasured by myself and countless others for the rest of our lives. Long after The Elder Scrolls 6 and beyond, it's safe to say that Skyrim will never be forgotten, no matter how much smaller it gets. Also, this is Skyrim Special Edition, which is 10 years old. I might just crumble to dust before the next video. Why did you put me here? This is horrible. It's Skyrim as well. It's going to take forever to dry. I'm going to be soaked for the rest of the winter. And I don't even know if there's slaughterfish in here. Don't get me started on that. There probably is. And in a minute, I'm going to start feeling it, and I don't want to feel that. This is...